All right, Drake, you have been randomly appointed a board member of the Pac-12 Board of Governors, and you get to have input on what two other schools minimum your conference is going after. Let's presume that nothing happens in the ACC, because if you could get Cal and Stanford back, you would take them. If you could get more schools from the ACC, you'd absolutely take them if they'd be willing to go in that direction. You might have, holdovers like Boston College or Wake Forest, but hey, anything's possible at this point. Let's say that doesn't happen. It's just Florida State, Clemson that leave the ACC, and the Pac-12 is left to rebuild with whatever's left in college football. Who are you targeting?
Yeah, one of the points that I'll go with here before I get into specific schools is there is money left over for Washington State and Oregon State to operate with, and that's why they're looking at the Mountain West schools. But John Wilner reports to the Seattle Times, the move will be devastating for schools like San Jose State, Hawaii, Utah State, Nevada, and others coming from the Mountain West. And what remains is part of a contract that has a $10 million per school clause for every team that leaves the Mountain West, the Pac-12. So the Mountain West saw this coming and said, hey,
it's a poaching fee is what it is.
If you want our schools, if that's the long term for the Pac-12, cool, come do it at a $10 million price tag so that we can rebuild. That price tag, Spencer, might be enough to convince New Mexico and Wyoming and Air Force to stay put in the Mountain West and try to let them put things together when you talk about, hey, long term, we, the Mountain West, can give you stability compared to this new up-and-coming Pac-12 that might not make it off the ground, doesn't have a TV deal, and you have no real technical stability. However, I do believe schools like Air Force or Wyoming, or you could dip down and find yourself in Las Vegas with UNLV, should be at the top of this list. Will that change if the ACC does, in fact, implode? Of course. Then you're calling Syracuse and Wake Forest and Boston College and saying, hey, you weren't profitable enough to make it to the Big Ten, the SEC, or the Big 12. If the ACC implodes, which I believe as of today, September 13th, that will not be the case. I do think the ACC will find a way.
No, it's September 12th.
Shoot, I don't even know what day it is at this point. I haven't slept in 3 weeks. Expansion news keeps happening. I haven't slept in 3 weeks. If that is the case and Boston College picks up the phone, yeah, sure. Stanford, Cal, they pick up the phone. Yeah, sure. But then at that point, do you have the resources to build a conference that's coast to coast, but that niche? I struggle to say yes. Right now, I think it is more conducive for you to build a new Pac-12 with UNLV than it is Wake Forest.
I don't disagree, but let's go back to the question, Mr. Presidential or Miss Presidential nominee, and say the question I asked was, if you don't have Power 4 schools available, where are you going? See, you can't do the politician dodge on this show. I'm not going to let it happen.
Thank you. At that point, I'm definitely putting a call into the Air Forces, Army, Air Force. Give me a UNLV, Nevada. I mean, I'm going to go with some of those Mountain West schools, as you're already doing with these 4 that have been rumored to join the Pac-12. From there, your military schools.
You've got to call the American Conference schools at some point, right?
But there's just no way. There's zero way that's a thing. The American Conference schools would never jump ship to say
Worst
yes,
thing they can do is say no.
Yeah, and they will.
But, okay. Hear me out on this particular pitch. Would it be beneficial for the Pac-12 schools? Obviously.
Right.
It would be. Is leaving the American as difficult or as expensive as leaving the Mountain West? No, historically that has not been the case. The American has schools that exist in places like Texas, for instance, just to name a couple, UTSA and North Texas. Texas State is in the Sun Belt, I know, but if you're the Pac-12 and you have these 4 schools with Oregon State, Washington State, and you're at 6 total, how strong is your pitch? This is what it'll come down to try to convince UTSA or North Texas or Tulane to say, this is the league you should want to be a part of. If you join us with how strong you are, Tulane, with your brand, UTSA, then our conference champion is guaranteed to get that G5 spot 9 out of 10 years on a rolling basis.
Yeah, then if I'm Tulane, I say, hey, wait a second, checks watch. We already have that. There is going to be no.
But see, here's the thing: the American Conference champion faces stiff competition at the moment. If you take the best from the American, Tulane, Memphis, USF, UTSA, and you put them in the Pac-12, how's the American Conference champ going to stack up? You're running out of teams. You're running out of schools. The biggest threat would probably be the Sun Belt.
But
And
you're
even
not.
then,
The thing is, if you're Tulane and Memphis, you're saying, hey, we're going to stay the American, and our conference champion is still in a better spot than going to a conference that has Colorado State or even San Diego State. And
that's fair.
At that point, if the American stays true to what it is, and it should, Memphis is saying, okay, Pac-12, what TV deal do you have? And they say, well, we're trying to figure that out. We want to see who all is going to come here. That is not worth leaving the American Conference. What you're not going to see with, and it's tough to guarantee it today, but I want to guarantee the American teams will not pick up the phone and legitimately consider joining Washington State and Oregon State in an effort to join Colorado State in a rebuilt Pac-12 where they're already in a conference that feels like, Spencer, answer me this. If you're in a conference with Washington State, Oregon State, Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State, Colorado State, a whole lot of states, is that an allure enough to try to rebuild that and leave a league that has the Tulanes and the USFs and the SMUs and the UTSAs? I don't think so.
The SMUs? Sorry, SMU's in what conference right now?
They let them out of the American?
Oh, yeah, they did.
No.
Did. Yeah, they just paid them a bunch of money and they left. They went to the Atlantic Coast Conference because, Dallas, and that makes all the sense in the world.
So,
I understand where you're coming from. The pitch is, hey, without you, we are comparable and we are going to fight for playoff spots. With you, it's going to be our champion because, Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, Oregon State, Washington State, Tulane, Memphis, UTSA.
So,
that conference champ is
right.
Is just so tough to beat because you're probably going to be 11-2.
We're in essence merging the Mountain West and the AAC, the best of the two conferences, into one singular conference and calling it the Pac-12. And it's not going to be the Pac-12 of old. And it's not going to get an automatic bid, though that was, again, alluded to by Ross Dellinger in his Yahoo Sports article. I just don't know if it's powerful enough to convince those schools to say, hey, we don't have pen to paper on a TV contract, but we could if you come here. I'm not doing that if I'm Memphis.
I understand that perspective. I still think if you're the Pac-12, you pick up the phone, say what's the worst they can do? Say no.
Yeah, you try.
And then you go to your backup options, which would probably be, look, I don't know if you could get teams from the Sun Belt like Texas State, but I think having a foothold at Texas would be valuable. Or James Madison feels way too new to be playing in the Pac-12.
But they're good. Well,
they are good, and they're committed. They got money.
To give you that, I do believe Sun Belt schools will be much more receptive to that call from Oregon State and Washington State, considering that those two brands are so much bigger than anything the Sun Belt has. The only thing I would want to touch on there with that, coast to coast is tough. It's going to be really tough to rebuild the Pac-12 and immediately make it James Madison from Virginia against Washington State from Washington.
That's true.
There are far less resources there.
I don't disagree. There are obstacles, there are hurdles, but just when you thought we could talk about only football,
I think Dylan Gabriel's going to have some success against the secondary. I try to tell you. I tell
you what, I think Kansas State is going to run all over Arizona and win in Manhattan and prove the Wildcats of the Arizona variety are not Big 12 title contenders. Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12. Drake, that was fun, I think. I can't believe you're awake right now.
That was the most journalistic thing we've ever done together, and I don't know if I love it or hate it.